You know the number one lie that leaders tell themselves? It's they don't have time for that. And what's the truth? They actually do have the time. They're just avoiding the hard thing. So in this episode today of the On Mission podcast, we're going to expose that and reframe what real leadership actually requires. So let's dive in. You know that conversation that you have been putting off for maybe days and even weeks? You know, the one where the team member is missing the company mark, but you haven't sat down with them, or it's the one about the direction of the company that nobody wants to have. It's the one that you keep moving from week to week on your calendar, and you tell yourself you're busy, and you are busy. But let me ask you something. Are you actually too busy? Or are you simply just avoiding? You see, because there is a difference, a very massive difference, and most leaders, I think they don't, that I know, good leaders, smart leaders, they don't even know which one they're doing. Am I avoiding or am I actually really busy? And so I want us to get into that today because there are some things that people do not say out loud, and avoidance often looks like productivity. I mean, think about it in your own life. You may have a full calendar. You got back-to-back calls. You got all these deliverables you got to do, deadlines, and whether it's things that you have to follow through on, and you're moving, you're doing a lot of things. But are you doing the thing? And the thing that you're not doing, that is usually the most important thing that you should be doing. It should be the top priority on your list, but you've been avoiding it. That's really not I think a time management problem. It's a courage problem that is dressed up as a scheduling problem. And so I'm not saying that to be harsh today. I'm saying that really because I've been there. I've lived it in different times, and I've seen it lived out with other leaders to where I've watched, even high performing leaders, they stay stuck for years because they never called out what it actually was. And so this episode today, what we're talking about, it's not really about hustle. It's not about having more productivity hacks or any of the things like that. It's simply addressing the hidden pattern in people's lives, maybe your life, that is keeping you from actually doing your job as a leader. And I believe there are different excuses that we fall to and that leaders fall to not address the real problem, to address the elephant in the room. And so I want us to tackle those. Let me tell you what a packed calendar is really saying, because one of the things that can keep you from avoiding a problem is the calendar lie. You see, most leaders will fill their schedule up and they have an excuse. So if, I would love to address that, but I just don't have the space and the time. I just don't know how I can get that worked into my calendar. And so it feels true. It feels great. The calendar confirms it, all of that. But who made the calendar? You did. And so you put things on there. You accepted those meetings, whether maybe you should or shouldn't have. And you created this wall. Why? Simply because I don't want to deal with the real issue I'm avoiding. And here's what's wild. The hard conversation that you may be avoiding today, it may take 15, 30 minutes, 45 minutes max, but instead you fill up every Tuesday with 4 hours of meetings simply so I don't have to have that hard conversation. You could have skipped those meetings, but you didn't. And why? Well, that status call feels safe. Having all those meetings and having all those calls that I have to do feels safe. And so a performance conversation, who wants to have those, right? But that's what you may be avoided. And a strategy review may even, that feels more comfortable. Let's just review what we've been doing as a company. But telling a team member that their behavior is actually hurting the team, that's not comfortable. So what happens is you fill up your calendar and you stay busy and you call it leadership, but it's really not. It's actually self-protection. It's actually self-protection in one sense, a really convincing disguise, because Who's going to argue with your calendar, right? But it's the tension that you live within and helps you to avoid what you should be dealing with. I think of another one. It's the idea of not counting the cost of dealing with the issue. Like, because here's what avoidance really costs you in your life and your business. It's quite simple, really. It's not just the missed conversation. Oh, I should have had that conversation. It's everything that happens downstream from that. We've talked about different times in other episodes of there's a ripple effect of your leadership, whether that's good or bad, positive or negative. And if you are avoiding the feedback conversation with Sarah, over in the next office, and Sarah just keeps doing what she's doing because she doesn't know that she may be doing it wrong, or that what she's hurt or issues she's causing the other team. But the team notices that, okay, you as the leader, you're not addressing this issue with her. So what happens is they lose trust in you. They start lowering their own standard, their own expectations. Well, if that's acceptable, then why do I need to hold myself to a higher standard? Nothing happens anyway, so what's it hurt? So what actually cost here is your culture quietly shifts. And different times I've said it to people that were working with me, is accepted behavior will be repeated. So if you celebrate a certain behavior, that's a way to get it repeated. But also what you tolerate is really a vote of acceptance. If you are continually tolerating, incompetence or lack of character or whatever it may be with a certain team member, what you actually are saying is like, okay, that's acceptable here. And so what happens when you don't deal with it, 6 months down the road, you've got this team problem that I really can't explain it. Well, you can't explain it because you can trace it back to that 30-minute conversation that you knew you should have had, but you didn't. And now you kept putting it off, and it's a big problem now. That's the cost, not the conversation itself. It's what, by not having that conversation, that is what costs you. And one thing I've learned is simply this: avoidance doesn't make the problems smaller. I heard a leader one time say, problems don't age well. And that's a very true statement. Avoidance doesn't make the problems smaller. If anything, it makes them more structural. It makes them bigger, and you have a bigger issue. So that small problem that you are avoiding today, if you avoid it long enough, it becomes a big problem you can't ignore. And by then, it's not like you don't just have a conversation on your hands. You actually have a crisis that you are going to have to deal with, simply because you haven't counted the cost of actually just having the hard conversation instead of avoiding. So that's a tension that I believe that leaders actually live in. But have you ever asked yourself, why do leaders avoid hard conversations and dealing with conflict? And so why do we do this as people, And why do smart, capable people, well-intentioned leaders just keep avoiding the hard thing? Like, oh, it's going to take care of itself. I believe there's 3 reasons I want to share with you very quickly. First one is it's just the fear of breaking the relationship. Leaders think that if they say the hard thing, that the person will leave or hate them or shut them down. And so they just say, stay quiet, and I want to protect the relationship. I'll just let the problem grow, and maybe it will suffocate itself and take care of itself by not dealing with it. But here's the irony of this. The relationship breaks because you stayed quiet. Think about that. The relationship breaks because you stayed quiet, not from the conversation. That's not what's causing it. It's from the actual silence. And I've experienced this with a lot of different leaders. It's just like, let's just sit down and have a conversation. I'm not here to attack you. I'm not here to place blame on you. Let's just have a conversation and talk it out. But there's a fear of breaking that relationship that holds people back. A second reason is they don't know how to have the conversation. one thing I think is lacking in our world today is just the reality of dealing with conflict or conflict resolution. And if you're not teaching that and helping your leaders and have a system and a process to do with that in your business, it might be something you want to look at, because nobody is necessarily out there teaching them. So people feel underprepared to have these hard conversations. So rather than go in underprepared, I'm going to wait. I'll just, I'll just wait a little longer and go from there. And it simply comes, they don't know how to have the conversation. The third reason is they don't believe it'll matter. I've heard this before. Man, I've tried that and nothing changed. And so people give up before they even start. And this one is probably the most dangerous because it's the leader who stops leading. It's a leader that is just basically giving up before they started. They're just managing what is there, not shaping what could be. And sometimes it takes more than one time, more than one try to get through and have that hard conversation. But instead, we just avoid it. And so those are three different reasons, I think, that of why it's easier for us to avoid and why people tend to default to that idea of avoiding the hard things. But I think there's other tensions here as well. There's a misalignment actually underneath. And this is what I really want to say is when a leader consistently avoids hard conversations, it's not just a habit issue. It's actually an identity issue. So somewhere along the way, the leader decided that being liked was safer than being respected. And that comfortable team today was worth having a confused team tomorrow. And when you think about that and that decision that the leader makes, it's whether you made it consciously or not, is running your leadership. And that's what I call the clarity gap. It's the space between what you know needs to happen and what you're actually doing. So what are you pretending not to know today and not do? Leaders who live in that gap, man, they live exhausted. And it's not really from the work either. It's really from this internal weight of just, man, I'm not doing what I know I should be doing. And that can be a very, very tough place to live. So here's the reframe for us today, and that's simple as this. The hard conversation is not the threat to your leadership. It is your leadership. Every time you delay in making a decision, you're deciding that your comfort is worth more than your team's clarity. And your team can feel that. I've been in the room I've seen it happen where the leader was avoiding it, the team felt it, and all the team really wanted to do was the leader to lead and have the hard conversation, stop avoiding. The team may not say it out loud, and your team may not say it out loud to you, but they know, and they might be talking about it in the Slack channels, or they might be talking it in the hallways. They know when you, the leader, are avoiding something. So they know when something needs to be addressed and it isn't. They're part of the team. And it teaches them and it structures your culture in such a way that, okay, this is acceptable here and nothing really changes here. And so that's usually when good and great people will leave a company or an organization. Why? It's simply because they're not willing to deal with the issues. Deal with the underlying thing, and so they just live on this hamster wheel every time of going through the motions and just same problem, different situation. But I want you to reframe it all to this and look at it through this lens. That what if clarity is truly an act of love for your team, for that person you need to have the hard conversation? Maybe you haven't thought of it that way, that clarity is really an act of love, because when you tell someone the truth, clearly, directly, with care, I believe that you're actually for them. If you're coming at it in a very attacking manner, then that's a different story. But if you are trying to look out for the best in their life, then you're trying to invest in them, you're caring for them. And that's really that clarity that you can bring to their life, whether they accept it or not, is truly an act of love. Leaders who get this right, they're not harsh, they're simply just honest. They're simply just honest. And honestly, when honesty is done well, it builds deeper trust than any amount of comfort that you will provide your team that it ever will. It's just when you can truly have an honest conversation. There's a beauty in that. So here's the question, I guess, to sit with this. What's the one conversation you've been calling not the right time, and what would happen if you had it this week? Think about that. What's the one conversation you've been calling, oh, it's not the right time? You've been avoiding it, and what would happen if you would just have it this week? Because look, if this hits something in you today, then I'm happy. I'm good. That's good. Because it's not shame. It's actually can be a signal for you. Because you've known for a while. You've known for a while. The question is, are you going to lead with clarity, or are you going to keep letting your calendar make the decisions for you? Because leadership, it's not about doing more things. I'm convinced of that more than ever. But it's about doing the right things. Even when they're uncomfortable. Actually, probably especially when they are uncomfortable. Because that's the job. Now go do it. So I want to thank you for joining me today on this edition of the Mission Podcast. And hopefully this is a help. If it's been a help to you, I would love for you to share this with another leader that may be going through and avoiding some hard conversations in their life. That this may be the catalyst to help them and help you to go deeper in your leadership and stop avoiding those things you have been avoiding. Once again, thank you for joining me here today on this edition of the Mission Podcast. We'll see you next time.